Nobody talks about Black Clover's paneling, or the stuff that it does with the manga composition, until this video. I'm not gonna talk about every single page in the manga, cause this shit is damn near 400 chapters, but I will be talking about some of them, like this one. In this page, Libe's body becomes the gutter of the page and the outlines of the speech bubble. If you don't know what a gutter is, it's the space in between the comic book panels. The context behind this page is that Libe is incredibly mad at seeing Lucifero again. Even if it's not him and it's just Dante has Lucifero's powers. So to sell that anger, the manga makes Libe the most prominent thing on the page and makes him distort the panels around him because of his anger. And that's the point. Usually whenever you see Libe in this world, you'll see him with just like his regular body. He looks normal. But now that he's super mad, this happens to the page. On the top right corner of the page, you'll see Libe's head, and his teeth, like his mouth, are the panel that Asta is in looking at this. Is in Libe's mouth, and you can see a bunch of Libe's teeth around him acting as the gutter, and he's just so confused. In the bottom right, you see Asta's face reacting to all of this, and he's kind of like overlaid over the actual page, and it's just a reaction shot of him wondering what the fuck is going on. By the way, the flow of this page goes like this, and one thing I like about this page is that at the bottom, when you see the small versions of Asta in each panel, he slowly turns around and gets bigger until we get into the gigantic overlaying version of Asta as reaction shot. Every single speech bubble we see on this page as we slowly follow the composition gets smaller and smaller and smaller until we see the very last speech bubble, and it's a very tiny speech bubble with the word kill on it in the gutter. Speaking of the speech bubbles, the outlines of the speech bubbles kind of look like they're untangling. It's kind of like what it looks like when Zagrid's on the page. Kinda. There's a little bit of a similarity there, but they are different. What I mean by this is that some characters in the manga have their own unique speech bubble that changes depending on their mental state. Nobody else in the manga really has these speech bubbles, hence why they're unique. The Zagrid thing is unique from Libe because once he starts out, his speech bubbles look like they're untangling, not to a very extreme extent. The more excited he gets and the more mounts he has on his body, the more insane the untangling of the outlines of the speech bubble happens. Then there's this speech bubble over here, which is just like multiple different speech bubbles layered under one thing. They're layered under one speech bubble because all of his mouths are saying the exact same thing, and it's a pretty cool effect. This entire thing is pretty cool because even when these characters that have unique speech bubbles are not on screen and they're talking, we can tell that it's them talking. There's also a Dramalek. Every single time we see him, or at least most of the time we see him, he's like super bored, so his speech bubbles are like dripping and oozing, and it's pretty cool. But when he does get excited, his speech bubbles spike up. Same thing goes for Magicula. She has these like playful dots around her speech bubbles, and the more enthusiastic or angry she gets, the bigger the dots become. It also gave us a pretty cool way to differentiate who was talking between Magicula and Vanica when Magicula took over half of Vanica's body. Libe is in that mental area or soul space that him and Asta usually go in. His speech bubbles look like they're on fire. Usually that's the case, not the untangled speech bubble. A pretty cool detail is that when Asta transformed into his black form for the first time, these speech bubbles became a mixture of the regular speech bubbles and the flaming ones that Libe has, because he's fusing with Libe. Back to actual paneling, we have this page here from chapter 356. This is the point where Yuno does Never Neverland for the first time. This is how the page flow of the page goes. We go from the top right with the fairy to Soul. Soul is looking at the fairy on the left, and from the fairy we follow her like little text down to the speech bubble. From the speech bubble we go to Yuno's hand, and one thing you will notice about Yuno's hand is that the hand part, like the fingers and the hand, is missing entirely from this panel. His hand is missing from his arm. Follow Yuno's arm downward into the next panel with Soul looking upwards at Neverland. Right next to Soul is Yuno's missing arm overlaid on top of the panels. It's like this man's arm teleported outside of the composition of the page, and it's just like his hand is interacting with the page through another dimension. It's pretty cool. Yeah, we go from Soul looking upwards to Yuno's hand, and Yuno's bandages are like pointing upwards into the speech bubble. And from the speech bubble we go into Bell to the Mana Zone, and then down into the other speech bubble, leading us all the way to the end. There's this cool page here in chapter 343 when Asta is fighting Ichika. What you'll notice on the top panel is that the speech bubbles outlines are slightly darker than they are usually. That's because Ichika is talking shit to Asta. What you'll notice is on the bottom panel, the outlines of the speech bubble get darker, and they're also like a part of Ichika's silhouette. And the final thing that she says on the page with that speech bubble, for one, the outlines got even darker. The outlines of that speech bubble is connected to the dark magic via via the silhouette, and the dark magic is going straight to her blade. It's connected to that way and it's going straight to a sharp object. The manga is like emphasizing the severity of the insult. Then there's this page right here from chapter 347. In this page, Heath just got done hitting them with his gigantic ice attack, and what you'll notice is that each of the Ryu's and Seven's body in between the ice is facing where the panel wants you to go. So in the first panel it's the left, in the second panel it's the right, and in the third panel it's the left again. The onomatopoeia is also directing you this way, so is the speech bubbles. You go straight into Heath. Right after the third panel, you follow the ice upwards into the speech bubble right at Heath. You can go to the next page after this, but if you continue following Heath's body right up to his hand on the top of the panel, his hand is overlaid on top of these panels, like he just came from casting the ice spell. It looks pretty cool. In chapter 310, when Yuno cuts Xenon in half, he actually splits the panel along with him. A chapter before this is chapter 309, Yuno gets trapped in the subspace, and in the next panel we see like Yuno's star not in the subspace, and right in the middle of the page there are two small panels overlapping the three biggest panels on the page. What you see in one of those two panels is Yuno doing hand gestures to get himself out of the subspace, and right next to it is the star and it's shining. Right below that is a panel of Yuno having teleported to that star. One thing you'll notice about this page is that the right side is Yuno trapped in the subspace. You go a panel below that, it's Yuno doing his hand gestures to get himself out of the subspace into the star, like teleporting next to the star, and below that is Xenon's surprised face. To the left, it's a star right outside of the subspace, the star that he teleports to, and him already having teleported. So in one of the overlapping panels where he's doing the hand gestures, he's actually pointing at himself in the subspace and then pointing to the star right next to it. It's kind of like he's dragging himself to that star, and below that we see him already having teleported there. And another thing you'll notice is that when Yuno is trapped in the subspace, the background is completely black because he's trapped in the subspace. Right next to him, the panel right next to him is outside of that subspace realm. So in the middle overlapping panels, when he's pointing to the star right next to him to teleport himself out of there, right, he's also pointing right at that space on the top panel with the star and Xenon's head. And in chapter 316, when Angsta and Liebe are about to do their devil union, the page flow on this page goes like this, but what I want to talk about is Liebe's body getting absorbed into the sword. And what you'll notice is that from Liebe's eye all the way down to the sword, the black in each and every panel is going straight on the sword. It's being absorbed into the sword, and it looks pretty cool. But that's about it for this video. There are so many pages I could talk about like this, but I don't want to do that right now. The key word here is right now. I'll do it later in another video, but for now, please like and subscribe, and I'll